The wind did not simply sweep through the Montana plains. It screamed like a restless spirit, rattling the boards of abandoned homesteads and whistling through the skeletal remains of barns long forgotten. In 1886, life in the West was measured by one thing: resilience. For women, survival depended not on luck, but on the grit they carried in their chests, and, if fortune allowed, on the man who might stand beside them. Clara Whitmore stood stiffly on the Granite Creek train platform, clutching a single worn satchel. Her hands were numb, and her fingers stiff from the cold that had seeped through her gloves and down to the bone. The train behind her had vanished into a gray haze, leaving only the echo of its whistle and the smell of coal smoke. She had left Ohio behind, her hometown, her family, her modest life, when the textile factory she worked at burned down, burying her future under ashen debt. Her savings, all she had left, bought her a one-way ticket west. She had hoped for a fresh start. But as she looked out at the snow-dusted prairie, doubt gnawed at her courage. At the edge of the platform, leaning against the frost-covered railing, was the man the townsfolk whispered about. They called him Silas Grey. He was a solitary figure, wrapped in patched canvas and thick wool stitched so many times it barely held together. Snow clung to his boots and dark hair, framing a face chiseled as if carved from the mountains themselves. His eyes were the color of shaded streams in the forest, deep and calm, and they seemed to watch the land with a quiet, unbroken patience. The train's whistle screamed one last time and disappeared. Clara shivered, not just from the cold, but from the lonely realization that she had no one left in the world. The Granite Creek boarding house had refused her entry. Without a husband or steady work, she was told she could not stay. Jobs for women like her were scarce. Her choices were stark: return east, hungry and broken, or take a chance on the man who waited at the edge of the platform. Silas's voice, low and steady, broke the frozen silence. "I have a cabin," he said. "It's far. The walk is hard, but you'll be safe there. You'll be seen as you are." Clara turned her gaze to the distant crazy mountains, their jagged peaks rising like the spines of sleeping beasts. She had never seen mountains before, never walked in snow this deep, never faced the West so unshielded. Hunger and grief had taught her only one thing: survival. Yet in Silas she saw a strength that did not belong to the cold, a steadfastness she could no longer summon herself. Her hand shook as she reached for his. He closed his rough fingers around hers. Together they stepped off the platform, leaving Granite Creek behind, the voices of the townsfolk fading to whispers among the howling wind. The judge performed the marriage ceremony in less than 5 minutes. No flowers, no music, just the stamping of law over two lives bound together so neither would freeze alone. Clara Whitmore had, by law, a companion, but she had no idea what waited beyond the town's border. Silas lifted her satchel with ease, as if it weighed nothing, and pointed toward a narrow ridge crowned with jagged stone. "Follow my tracks," he said. "Do not look back." The timber swallowed them. Pines rose like sentinels, blocking the sky and muffling the wind's roar. The only sound was the crunch of Silas's boots breaking the frozen ground. Every few minutes he paused, tilting his head as if listening to the mountains themselves. Clara struggled to keep pace, her breath fogging in the icy air. "Wait," he whispered. Her heart lurched. She expected danger, but he knelt beside a frozen stream, breaking the thin ice with a boot and filling a wooden cup. "Drink," he said. "The air steals strength if you do not." Clara drank, her fingers brushing his hands. They were rough, scarred, but careful. She realized something astonishing. Silas was at home here. The mountains belonged to him, not the other way around. Hours passed. The path narrowed. Ice and slick stone replaced the dirt. Jagged ledges fell away into dizzying drops. Fear gripped Clara, yet Silas moved with confidence, every step deliberate, as if the mountains themselves guided him. At dusk, they reached a massive rock overhang. "Here we stop," Silas said. "The mountain has other plans tonight." Clara looked around. There was no cabin, no fire, only cold stone. She shivered. "Where is your home?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Silas moved with practiced efficiency, gathering dry pine needles and fallen branches. Sparks flew from flint and steel. Soon a small fire danced against the stone, casting shadows that softened the sharp edges of the night. "The mountain speaks," he said quietly. "If you listen, she lets you stay." He gave Clara willow bark to chew, easing the headache that throbbed behind her temples. She watched him move with the patience of someone who understood both the land and the passage of time. This was no brute. This was a man who knew the language of survival, the silent dialogue between man and wilderness. "Why do they call you Silas Grey?" she asked. "They see rags," he said, "not the man beneath them." Night pressed in, and the storm raged on the peaks above. Silas wrapped Clara in a buffalo hide. "Body heat," he said. "That is what matters now." In the firelight, he spoke of stars, directions, and reading the land in silence. Clara listened, her fear slowly replaced by awe and gratitude. She realized she had never felt safe like this in years. When the storm eased, they climbed again. Snow whipped sideways. Ice stung her face. Clara slipped and Silas caught her, holding her tight in a narrow break between stones. The storm tried to erase the world, but they moved higher, the mountains opening to a secret no one below could imagine. Eventually, the hidden valley appeared. Steam rose from thermal pools. Greenery clung to life where no life should be. Before Clara, built into the cliffs, was a home of cedar and quartz, shimmering in the pale light. "This is where the mountain keeps her secrets," Silas said. Inside, Clara found the order behind the wilderness. Shelves lined with books and journals, filled with plans, sketches, and meticulous notes. The house was more than shelter. It was a sanctuary. Built piece by piece, year by year. Over weeks, Clara learned the rhythm of the valley. Silas taught her which plants healed and which harmed, how to read the sky when clouds hid the sun, and how to listen to the silence that warned of danger. She organized his papers, cataloging, labeling, and preserving the knowledge he had painstakingly gathered. One night, she asked the question that had been hanging between them. "Who were you before this?" He placed a small locket on the table. "Nathaniel Grey," he said. "An engineer from Boston. Buildings, bridges, steel and stone. My life crumbled under pride and loss. I came west to forget. The mountain reminded me what matters." Clara reached for his hand. "You didn't run. You built something better." Time passed, and the hidden valley endured winter's wrath. Snow buried the towns below, yet above the clouds life thrived. Streams ran, gardens grew, and warmth filled the cedar and quartz house. Clara discovered purpose in tending winter gardens, harvesting greens and roots, and learning the subtle signals of weather unique to the valley floor. Nathaniel continued his work, sketching new structures, drawing inspiration from the wild mountains. Where grief had guided his hands, hope now directed them. At night by the hearth they read together. Histories, poetry, and engineering plans, the old world and the new, mingled in their voices. Nathaniel shared knowledge, and Clara organized it, bringing clarity and order. Together they rebuilt not just the house but life itself. Spring came late, but when it arrived it was gentle. Snow melted, streams sang, and shoots pushed through the warmed soil. They expanded the house, adding wings and windows. Nathaniel's sketches took shape. Where once survival had been the goal, now they planned for life. Clara stood on the ridge above the hidden valley, the girl who had trembled on the train platform long gone. Nathaniel joined her, slipping his hand into hers. "They think we vanished," she said. "Let them," he replied. "We found what we needed." Years passed. The storm softened to memory. The house remained strong and warm, a testament not to wealth, but to patience, knowledge, and love. Clara had not been rescued from hunger and cold alone. She had been led into a kingdom built by hands that knew hardship and a heart that had learned hope. And in the silence of the high Montana mountains, far from judgment and fear, two lives flourished. The greatest treasure of the West was not gold or riches buried in soil, but a home above the clouds, where the world could not touch it.